Hello and welcome to this session. In this session, we will create some tests on our local REST API, and I hope in the last session you have started the local server, the JSON server, and here if you see on my command line, the JSON server is running, and if I go to the db.json file, we had added this data in the last session, and then if I check on my browser and if I go to localhost 3000, it will show me the resources. So I have users and subjects, and if I go to localhost 3000 /users, it gives me the users that I have here, and similarly I have subjects. So this we have done in the last session. Now I will start creating some tests in rest assured on this particular API. So I will go to my Eclipse, and here is the project that we created. I am going to go to the tests package here, and I will do a right click and create a new class, and I will name this tests on local API. You can name it anything and say finish, and this is the class. And now I will create a function or method. I will say public void. Let me very quickly create a get request. So I will name this as get. You can name the function anything, and to make it as a testng test, I will give the annotation at test and import this from org.testng.annotations. And now here I will first say let me also import rest assured class in a static way. So I will say import static io dot rest assured dot rest assured class, and I will say dot star to import everything inside the rest assured class. And now I can directly use the functions inside this rest assured class. So I will say given, and I will say get, and I will use the endpoint. Now here this is the endpoint, so I can copy this and put it here. Or a more standard way is I will first create a base URI. I will say base and control space bar, and I have this base URI coming from rest assured, and I will make this equals to this base URI of the API. So I will put this here, and the rest of the endpoint I will put here in get. So I'm saying given when I do a get on users resource, then I'm expecting a status code of 200. So a very simple get request, and if I run this, I will do a right click, run as testng test, and here this is running fine, everything is pass, and on the console everything is pass as well. And of course if I want to log the response on the console, I can say log all. We have learned all this in the last sessions, so now it will also show me the users resource on the console, and you can see I'm getting the response here. So a very simple get request. Now let me create a post request. I will do comment out this test so that it does not run this one, and I will create a new function public void post, and also make it as a testng test. I will say at test annotation, and here we know for post we have to create the body and we have to pass the body or the payload. And if I check the API, let us say if I want to create a new user, so I will have to pass first name, last name, and subject ID. The ID of the user will be auto generated, so I need to pass these three information items: first name, last name, and subject ID. So for that I will use the JSON object. So this is coming from simple JSON that we have added in the last sessions. So this is the one. I will say request equals new JSON object, and then using the request I will say request dot put, and I have to give the key value. So the first information I have to give is first name, and I can say this is equals to Thomas, and then again I will say request dot put, then I will say here last name, and value is Edison, and then I will say request dot put subject ID, and I will say subject ID is, let us say, 1 here. So that's it. I have created the request, and now I will send the post request. So I will use the base URI same, so I can copy and paste the base URI here, and then I will say given, and because this is a post I can also inform what is the content type. So if I say content type, I can say content type dot JSON. You can also use headers, we have seen that in the last session, and I will also say that accept content type JSON. So I'm sending JSON and I'm also accepting JSON, and then I also need to provide the body. So let me put this into different lines so it is easily readable. So I will now say dot body, and the body is the request variable I will pass here, and to make sure that it converts into a JSON I will say to JSON string. So we are providing the body also here, and then I will say when. So when we do a post, so I will say when, and I will say post, and then I have to give the endpoint. So this is the base URI, and the endpoint where I have to post this is /users, and then I can say then I can say status code. I can check the status code is 201. So for successful creation, status code is 201. And you can also check other things like some particular element in the body or data in the body we have already seen in the last session. So I'm not repeating those things. I'm just running this particular request, and this should create a new resource, a new user with this data on the server. So let us check. I will run this, and this looks fine, everything is passed. So now I will go on my browser and refresh, and yes, you can see a new user is created here with ID 4, and if I go on my db.json file, you can also see it is asking to reload. If I reload it, a new user is created here. So our post is successful. Now if I have to update this user, I can use put method. So let me just copy this function, post function. I'll copy this post and create a new function. So I'm just copying and pasting this function, and I will name this to put, and also make it as a testng test. So I will say this is at test, and I have commented out the earlier function. So here I also have to provide the data, so I will keep this as it is and all this as it is. And here, instead of post, I will say put, and then I have to give the URI or the resource to a particular user. So I will say /users and /4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the first name to Albert and last name to Einstein, and let us say subject ID to 2. So I will be updating the user ID 4, user with ID 4, and I will be updating this data. So let me check and run. I will run this, and okay, there was a failure, and I believe the failure was because we did not change the status code, and that is why you can see here it says expected status code was 201, but it was found, but actual was 200. So that is fine. It was our mistake. We did not change the status code here. So let me change it here, but it should have updated the resource on the server. Let me check. I will go to the browser and refresh, and you can see it has changed the data here. If I go to my file and reload, you can see the data is changed here as well. So this is working fine, and I will also try out a patch request where I will update some particular data in this user. So I will just copy this function again and paste it here, and this I will change to patch. So these function names you can give anything, and here let me just say I want to change the update the last name to Doe, and then here I will say instead of put I will say patch on this particular user with ID 4, and this is the data we are updating. So now if I run this test, and status code we are checking is 200, so I'm running this now, and let us see the output. So this looks everything is pass. If I go on my browser and refresh, you can see the last name is changed here, and the same thing if I go to the db.json file and reload, last name is changed here. So this is working fine. Now I can also try to delete this resource. So I will comment this one and create a new function, public void delete, and again make it as a test-ng test, and then the base URI is same. I'll copy the base URI here, and then I will say I can directly say when, because I do not have any precondition. I will say when I delete the resource, which is /users /4, so the user with ID 4, then I'm expecting status code 200, or you can also say 204. In some cases we get 204 as a successful status code of deletion, but sometimes we get 200. So let us check with this. I will run this test, and here everything looks fine. This is running fine. If I go on my browser and refresh, you can see the user with ID 4 is now deleted. The same thing if I go on my file db.json and reload, the user with ID 4 is now deleted. So this is how we can do all these operations on our local API. I hope this session was useful for you. Thank you for watching.